Buckingham. Dr. Buckingham, how are you today?
Hey, I am just great. Happy Monday morning to you.
And to you. So I never lived in a state with a land commissioner. So what is a land commissioner, and how'd you get yourself in the center of this huge constitutional battle between Texas and the feds? But first, what even do you do? What is the land commissioner?
Well, we are the last remaining vigil of the Republic of Texas. So when the Republic was transitioning into a state, we had lived under multiple flags, had overlapping land grants, and we had to figure out who owned what. So the General Land Office was founded to be the keeper of maps, the guardians of Texas history, and the steward to what is today is 13 million acres, which ties into how we got in this fight. We're responsible for the majority of oil and gas in the state. I'm not just the largest landowner, but I'm the largest mineral rights owner. And if you look at how the Biden administration has been able to shut down oil and gas in the rest of the country on their federal lands and things like that, they haven't been so successful in Texas. It's why they keep streaming at us. And then, of course, with our mapping responsibility and stewarding the land, then we have those islands in the Rio Grande. We just made Texas bigger and America bigger for the first time in a few hundred years, claiming a couple of those islands and taking away those safe sanctuaries from the cartels. But we also do everything coast, disaster recovery. We run our veterans benefits. We fund education. We do a lot of fun things. It's a statewide elected position, but pretty special in the United States, actually.
Okay, so there's a lot going on there. The one that stood out among all them, claiming islands? What are you doing? Donald Trump says he wanted to take Greenland.
This is the funnest thing ever. I tease because I'm the first woman land commissioner that it took a woman to get it done right, because the ask had been in for a couple of years. People have been going in circles about could we claim these islands or not. But early in my tenure, I was asked by the Department of Public Safety to look at declaring these islands Texas. And by our treaty with Mexico from the mid-1800s, anything north of the center of the Rio Grande is, of course, ours. And so I got my surveyors out, made sure we were good on where the center of the river was, made sure we were good with the treaty, and then claimed them. And the reason they're so important is when they were just in the middle of the Rio Grande before they had been claimed, neither American law enforcement nor Mexican law enforcement or military could step on them. So they were truly sanctuaries. The largest one, the last one, Fronten Island, was 170 acres. It was a great place for them to stash all their weapons. It was a great place for them to stash all their drugs, to traffic human beings, because they were entirely safe there, except when the other rival cartels were trying to take the island because it was such a strategic advantage. So we claimed it. Our Texas Military Department and DPS cleared the islands, and now I'm happy to say they are fully defended and there is no human trafficking or weapons or drugs coming across those pieces of property.
Okay, well, that's awesome. Fulton Island.
Mm-hmm.
Never heard of this.
Some of the media has nicknamed it Cartel Island. So I personally think Buckingham Island is better, but they didn't go there.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Okay. All right, that's great. All right, so I want to talk about the liquid natural gas in just a second, but first let's back it up here. Where were you? What's your role in this whole thing with Eagle Pass and just the border? Let's do border in general. What's the land commissioner's role with the border in general with Mexico? And then specifically what's going on at Eagle Pass and Shelby Park and Texas taking over this park, and you won't allow the feds in, and now people are drowning and dying, and you're just standing back, Dr. Buckingham. You're standing back and watching good people die in the middle of the river because you won't let the feds
I have so much to tell you about all of that. So first of all, most people don't realize it was the General Land Office that built the first section of the wall several decades ago, and that is because part of what we do is flood mitigation. And so down in the valley, we built a big levee, and it just happened to have a 30-foot fence on top of it. So, where there's a will, there's a way. We can get that border secure. So we kind of started in that history. Of course, I have hundreds of thousands of acres all along the border, and we're doing things there. But let's talk about this park for a second. This was a city park. Happens to have a golf course on it. It's where the local kids practice golf who are on the golf team. And it was made completely unsafe by the feds turning it into an immigrant processing center. So it was filled with thousands upon thousands of migrants. It was no longer safe. The local community could not access their park. The kids were not safe to practice golf. And so DPS came in and took control of the park. The other thing that's important to realize is that previously, under the Trump administration, Border Patrol had decided that in-water barriers would be very needed at this point at the border because the river here is very variable and incredibly unsafe, and so incredibly likely to to cause drownings. And so because of that high risk, there were already plans to have barriers in the river. Now, of course, when Biden came in, he usurped all those plans to secure our border and opened it up fully. But that's why the Razor is there. The boat ramp is still open for Border Patrol to come in and launch boats. But barriers change the traffic pattern. People go where there's not a big barrier. So the barriers are actually intended to prevent drownings, so that channels the migrants to places where they can be accessed by Border Patrol, and it's a safer part of the river. So there's a lot of sides to this argument. The Biden administration is impressive with the stuff they throw out into the air, but we're going to fight hard and secure our border. And they're talking about taking the razor wire. I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed in the Supreme Court's original decision, but that was just a brief about an injunction. The bigger court case happens in the Fifth Circuit, I think somewhere around February 7th. So stay tuned. The fight's still going.
Whose park is it?
It's the city's park, actually. But the DPS and the Texas Military Department have secured it so the citizens can have access to it.
So you mentioned how, of course, borders change patterns and where people go, of course. It just clicked as I'm looking at a aerial picture of Shelby Park. There's a highway going right through the park, through the golf course, over the Rio Grande into Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So, the people are coming across the river, like a couple blocks away from what I'm assuming is a legal means of coming in and out of the country?
Yes, amazing that. There's a wonderful pathway, but you know what? The cartels don't make billions of dollars if people just walk across a bridge.
It's right there.
So this is all about money, and again, I remind everyone the folks coming across are completely enslaved by the cartels. They are either going to be selling drugs to make up their debt to the cartels. They're going to be selling their bodies. They're going to be selling their young children's bodies. The stories are truly horrific, especially in the trafficking. The fact that we have recovered enough fentanyl to kill every man, woman, and child in America multiple times over. There is just a lot going on there. In fact, if the cartels find someone who came across and didn't use them, they go and kill them and their families in the most violent way. Just tell everyone you could only come across with us. So you're exactly right. There is a safe place to legally walk across and engage in the process in a legal manner, but that's not what they want to do.
Talking with the Texas Land Commissioner, Dr. Dawn Buckingham, Texas Land Commissioner. Okay, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3. Mm-hmm. No state shall, that includes you, Texas, no state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops, or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war, comma, unless actually invaded, or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. Mm-hmm. Are you being actually invaded in the state of Texas?
I consider 3 million people across our border an invasion, 300,000 in December alone, setting all-time records. The people we're seeing are a lot of military-age young men. We are seeing a lot of weapons. We're seeing violence peak in Mexico across the river. We are absolutely being invaded. If we had, let's just pick it, if 10,000 Texans walked across into Mexico, Mexico would consider being invaded. It is laughable, these liberal mayors that are the sanctuary cities, such as New York City, and that mayor starts complaining about getting 100,000 migrants. When you put that in context with Eagle Pass, it would be like New York City getting 2.7 million migrants a week. Those are the kind of relative numbers that Texas is dealing with. We are absolutely being invaded, and we are being invaded because Biden's policies are the active lure that bring people here. Texas has been standing in this gap for several years, and will continue to do so. But I just want to remind everybody, you are exactly right. It's the federal policies that are driving this. And if this is a disaster, which I think it is, and I think it's an invasion, then it is going to take a change at the federal level. We need a new president if we're going to get any kind of sanity within this room.
Okay, so But here's the argument. The argument is that this is a federal issue, the border. You state can't come in here and go rogue and start securing the border when this is a federal government responsibility. And Dr. Dawn Buckingham, Texas Land Commissioner, if someone comes across that border halfway across that river and claims asylum, it is the federal government's responsibility to protect that asylum seeker from people like you, quite frankly. What do you say to that?
Well, you're right. Well, let's talk about Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, which is that the federal government has to guarantee, 1, a republic form of government, and 2, safety and secure border. They have completely failed. And so when the federal government can't do their job, or in this case won't do their job, then I think Texas and every other state has the full right to step in and do it. Of course, the very best option is to have the federal government actually do its job, obey our Constitution, obey the laws of our country. But since they clearly are not interested in that, we have to defend ourselves.
Okay, well, I've never read Article 4, Section 4. Bear with me, Land Commissioner. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government, okay, and shall protect each of them against invasion. Come on. How in this whole conversation, I've never heard Article 4, Section 4.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the nuance here is what is an invasion? I always would have interpreted an invasion as a armed military led by a commander, like the army of Guatemala is coming up here. This isn't that. So the question is, how close to that is this? Is this an invasion? That's the question, right?
Well, we see, and you're exactly right. That is the nuance. But I'm going to be honest. What's coming across? We are seeing a lot of armed people coming across. There are pictures from game cameras and security cameras all up and down our border. Hordes of military-aged men carrying fully automatic rifles, not even just semi-automatic rifles. This is an invasion. We think it's an invasion. We have tried every other option to defend ourselves and to compel the federal government to do its own duty and what it's supposed to do. But again, if they won't, we will.
What do the feds want out of you exactly?
Well, I can say that we've seen recently a New York Congresswoman talking about how she wants a lot of the migrants in her district to help her with redistricting. I think we can see with the amnesty push that the feds or the Democrats are doing, I think that they want a block of voters that will turn the tides of our elections for decades, if not centuries to come. I think it's pretty obvious what they're trying to do.
What do they want the state of Texas law enforcement to do? They want you to leave Shelby Park so that and other places so that they can do what?
I think they want an open border. They want a sieve. You have to understand, our border is hundreds and hundreds of miles. The good thing about the barriers is it does channel the migrants so that if and when they get across, they can be encountered by Border Patrol and law enforcement. You can't put enough people on the border to secure every square inch of it without some kind of a barrier. And so I think they clearly just want a sieve of a border, and they want to let everybody in, regardless of the fact that they're coming from over 150 countries, thousands of people from countries that sponsor terrorism. And let's talk about the Chinese for a second. You don't just walk out of China. The only way you get out of China is if your government lets you out or wants you out. And so when you think about, between the spy balloon coming over our shores, you look at the 100-year Chinese plan when the Communist Party took over about being the supreme force in the world. There's a lot of indication we could be headed toward military conflict with China, and yet we're seeing tons of migrants from China come across the border. From what I've seen, they're pretty much all military-age males. We're seeing a lot of people off the terrorist most wanted list. I think, there are people who benefit from chaos. It's why you see the narco state that is so much of Central and South America, and they want, for whatever reason, they feel like that empowers them.
Congressman Joaquin Castro of San Antonio said that Republicans are bloodthirsty when it comes to the issue of immigration. Are you bloodthirsty?
I think Republicans want people to come legally and have the American dream. And when you come across the border illegally and you're given a court date 6 years later, you can't work legally. Now you're given all the social services, which is going to have an incredible impact on our budget and the financial strain just from that point of view. But what Republicans want is we want people to come here and be productive citizens and have access to the American dream. And the people who are coming across now don't have access to that.
Last question for you, Land Commissioner, is this major talking point from the Democrats right now that Trump doesn't want this border deal to go through. And Trump wants the border to be open like it is now, from now until the election, to make Biden look bad. So he's sabotaging efforts to secure the border until he can get elected. That's the claim from the left. Is that true? What do you make of that?
That's laughable. So of course, right now, Trump has no control over the border. I always do try to emphasize as well that our border communities are lovely communities with amazing people who live there. I'm down there a fair amount, and every time I go, especially now under the Biden administration, even the most hard or ardent Democrats down at the border recognize and are furious that the Biden administration is leaving their communities unsafe, hurting them economically. And so, I think we all want the border secure. Biden is showing no signs of securing it, and I think Trump is our only hope as our presidential nominee to get it done.
Texas Land Commissioner Dr. Dawn Buckingham claiming islands left and right. Maybe you can be in charge of claiming Greenland. This is the biggest disappointment of the Trump presidency, was that he threw it out there, never executed, right? It was a major failure, I believe, on his behalf, so that you could be the one to do it.
I'll look into that and get back to you.
Yes, thank you. As soon as this is over, move on to the next project. Dr. Dawn Buckingham, thank you, ma'am. We'll talk again.
Have a great day.